I could picture like tired Border Patrol White House officials saying, Patrol / White House officials like sitting around in some office building, right? It's like, Jesus, I can't. We've exhausted every possibility. I can't figure out a way how to separate families and be able to get away with it legally. I just can't do it. There's no legal ground for it. And then someone just goes up. Wait a minute. What's the only thing in Dana Sabrow's ruling that makes an exception? If we say the parent's unsafe, oh my gosh, a light bulb. Like that, you could tell, like it's like almost like a TV show. That's how I picture it happening. It's like, oh my god, that's awful. Yeah. Central case in ProPublica's story is also pretty devastating. The publication got a lead on story after getting a tearful call from a father, Julio, who had been separated from his 4-year-old child, Brian, at the border in Texas. ProPublica reporters found the boy in a foster care home in New York, standing up the horrible revelation. Brian, that pretty much until that phone call, the lawyer Jody Zeismer had been a supervising attorney at Catholic Charities, had no idea that Brian had been separated from their father. The chaos felt disturbingly like zero tolerance all over again. It's so disheartening, Zeismer said. This was a policy that's supposed to be ended. So yeah, he had no idea what was going on, and it looks like very much this policy, the separation of border policy, the separating of families from the border policy is very much still in action. And the very disconcerting thing, and something that completely devalues everything the Trump administration has said since they said they ended this, is we stopped. We don't do this. We acknowledge this is a bad idea. We don't want to do this. We're backing away. We are backing away from this toxic, awful, evil, racist policy. And meanwhile, they've been creeping back as close and close to that policy for that entire period of time, from July to August to September to October to November. They've been creeping their way back up to this policy, and it looks like they have found a way to do it effectively. It's very scary that they are doing this at this point, just say the least. And guess what? Customs and Border Patrol official claim that Brian's father, Julio, was associated with, you guessed it, MS-13, but refused to present any evidence of that to the reporter or the lawyer, or share why they thought he'd be a danger to his child. Julio arrived at the border with a letter from a lawyer attesting he'd been attacked and persecuted by gangs for years, and later received a charter reference from his former employer, and still, MS-13, boom, easy. Like, wow. Like, you can't get any worse than that. Customs and Border Patrol official refused to tell ProPublica how many children had been separated through the process, but lawyers from the Catholic Charities say they've discovered at least 60 new cases. There are most likely cases under this policy where Sabraw's exception is justified, obviously, but the fact that we have clear evidence that they're exploiting this is disturbing, and it's like true. It's so disheartening that when a judge says something for an obviously clear reason, to be used in extreme cases, when they just get one little thing to go in their direction that's meant to be for the most extreme cases, children whose kids who are like high up members of gangs and stuff like that. The Border Patrol says, yep, let's cause life-lasting harm and trauma in the lives of just random families. Like, let's just do it. It's perfectly cool. Like, yeah, I like that. It's a great idea. Like, yeah, you cannot get any worse. Like, that's just awful stuff. Yeah, so anyway, we're going to now go to National Security Advisor and mustache conveyance mechanism, John Bolton. He got into a testy exchange with the White House press corps on Tuesday when he was asked whether or not he listened to the alleged audio of Washington Post journalist Jamal Khashoggi's murder at the hands of the Saudi assassination squad we all know too well about. No, I haven't listened to it, he said, before explaining that despite his job, National Security Advisor, pretty big deal, he couldn't think of a single reason why he should have to listen to a tape featuring the death of a U.S. resident, one which even the CIA claims was ordered at the hands of Mohammed bin Salman. Besides, it was wonderful language anyway. Let's take a listen.
me take the question of the tape first. No, I haven't listened to it. And I guess I should ask you.
It's a little hard to hear.
I should. What do you think I'll learn from it?
Well, you're the national security advisor. You might have access to that sort of intelligence.
How many in this room speak Arabic?
You don't have access to an interpreter?
Well, you want me to listen to it? What am I going to learn from? I mean, if they were speaking Korean, I wouldn't learn any more from it either.
Well, I think an interpreter would be able to tell you.
Well, then I can read a transcript too.
Okay, so you don't think it's important to hear that as a national security?
I'm just trying to make the point that everybody who says, why don't you listen to the tape, unless you speak Arabic, what are you going to get from it?
Have you read
a
transcript?
The president has spoken to our position on this issue. He's spoken very clearly, and that is our position. Now, tell me the
Are
other
you
question.
blocking Gina Haspel from
certainly
sharing
not.
information with members of
Certainly
Congress?
Could you go back to the two questions?
Yeah, so that is Bolton on the issue there, and it's just, sheesh. Like that sounds like yeah, I'll take a shower later. Like, oh, I don't know, like it's impossible, right? Like, and you throw up some like random excuse that it's just so thin it just falls like flat on his face, so it just shatters instantly when like the silliest questioning. It's like, oh my god, yeah. Jesus, yeah. Like, what do you think I'll learn? What do you think I'll learn from it? He says, you're literally the U.S. government. You're like the biggest employer in the country, obviously. Like, how in the world? There's not one Arabic interpreter. Like, you don't have to answer that. I know there is. It's okay. Like, don't lie. But like the fact that you will not use that to like actually see the tape and understand like the way things actually went down, because there's a lot you can understand from reading you can't understand from reading a transcript that you can understand from watching a tape. Like, it's that simple. And I'm not sure he's even read the transcript. Like, cause here's this easy answer to the situation. He just doesn't give a shit. He just doesn't care at all. Like, it's that simple. When asked about whether he'd read, a translated transcript, which Bolton said just seconds earlier he would do rather than listening to the tape, the National Security Advisor pivoted to Donald Trump's earlier, happened statement, in which he's essentially given the Saudi government a free pass for murdering U.S. residents. So, I mean, I'm never going to Saudi Arabia. I'll say that, at least under the Trump administration, because Trump, again, he does not have the Americans back over Saudi Arabia. This is proven, exclusively proven, that he is willing to sacrifice. He's willing to sacrifice the interests of Americans over for Saudi Arabian interests. Like, it really is quite despicable. Anyway, yeah, this is, I mean, I do feel safer knowing that the guy who has the ear of the president on national security issues is so viscerally opposed to being exposed to different languages. So yeah, makes me feel good. And the fact that he literally doesn't know how to ask for an interpreter or do his job in any way is incredible. Yeah, so as if the weekend assault on the incoming asylum seekers at Tijuana wasn't going as disastrously as you expect, if that wasn't enough, that whole Tijuana incident wasn't enough, we have a new news piece over the news wire here. The U.S. Customs and Border Patrol is reportedly getting absolutely shafted in its deal with the consulting firm to hire more border agents. A report published on Monday from GovExec, based on numbers provided by the Trump administration's agency, showed that after signing a 5-year, $300 million deal with Accenture, one of the dozens of awful consultant firms that duly provided Ivy Fail sons a landing pad after graduation to hire an additional 75,000 additional border agents and customs officers. So the firm so far has just hired 15. So yeah, $300 million for 15 border agents. $300 million for 15 border agents. How about a round of applause for you boys in the Border Patrol? Incredible work. Absolutely incredible. Yes, the hiring push came after President Trump's repeated calls to flood the border with troops and more Border Patrol agents. The issue is that Border Patrol has already paid Accenture $43 million of its contract. So again, I made that statement. $43 million for 15 Border Patrol agents. So I'm going to do the math here. That's 40, and let's be honest. the Border Patrol does not get paid that contract. That that consulting firm gets paid that contract. It's just that simple. It's like, yeah, that's how it works. So yeah, another 33 folks have been hired by Accenture. So for those of you who can't count at home, that's $2.8 million per head, if we're counting those who are working at $895,833. Counting folks who signed their papers. Yeah, so that is a colossal waste of taxpayer money, and it's very, very disturbing that we have, like, hopefully there's some more people that, like, you hope there is, but you hope there isn't, and you hope that, I don't know, it's a very conflicting story, because, again, you don't want more Border Patrol agents. You want them to be, like, you want them to take a chill pill, and you don't want them to be able to, like, tear gas migrant children anymore. But, on the other hand, you don't want taxpayer money to be wasted so flagrantly like that. All right, I don't think we've ever talked about this guy on the show, but we're going to introduce you today to a new pundit you may have heard of, or maybe you haven't. His name is Erick Erickson. He's a conservative blowhard, a man so bad they named him the same spelling twice. That's Erick, Erickson. He casts himself pretty much as a stalwart defender of some of the nation's worst people, like Donald Trump and trans people. He's anti-trans people, of course. On Monday night, Erickson popped off this galaxy bearing tree, perhaps after spending a day thoughtfully ruminating on the horrifying images coming out the border. So, saying, quote, the U.S. spends $618 million in Guatemala, Nicaragua, Honduras, El Salvador, and Mexico. We could double that and still be 11% of the cost of the wall. And we could deploy the money to find and prop up the next generation Pinochet types. Yeah, that's very, very cool. Love that. These countries are corrupt. We will not exterminate that corruption. But let's not pretend we should let corrupt autocrats thrive who work against our hemispheric interests and cause refugee caravans to approach our borders. I got bad news for you, buddy. It's not them. It's really not them who are saying, let's approach the borders. It's the drug war. It's the United States' influence on that drug war that destabilized the country, and, again, that violence, again, that is perpetrated by these drug gangs is oftentimes what leads people to leave. Yeah, so presumably, heavy hand is a reputation to Pinochet's murder, torture, imprisonment, and disappearance of tens of thousands of dissidents. This is a great idea. And if that's the cost of free market reforms, again, it just happens. Sorry, this is the last tweet. So, yeah, support strong leaders who will force through free market reforms and provide economic stability, even with a heavy hand. So that's great stuff. Yeah, so incredibly, when a Twitter user pointed out this may not work so well, Erickson was ready with a response. And then this is actually pretty bad. So Josiah Neely on Twitter, at JNeely78, replies to Erickson saying, I think there may be some holes in this plan. Erick Erickson says, I'm hoping for some helicopters in this plan because Pinochet liked to throw enemies out of his planes. Like, that's the justification behind it. Like, it's not saying, like, let's avoid it. But what he's saying, Augusto Pinochet, this is from The Guardian here, new evidence of crimes committed during the rule of Augusto Pinochet, including dumping 120 bodies from helicopters into the Pacific lakes and rivers. Like, I mean, gee, if he was dumped in the sea, he would probably just, like, keep floating because there's a lot of weight in there. So he's a very rubbery boy, Erick Erickson. It's very cool. It's very, very cool stuff. Again, Erick Erickson, the best the right has to offer right there. All right, that's it for us today. We will see you back here. And by the way, ladies and gentlemen, this was our 270th episode. Thank you so much for listening. Really appreciate it. 270th episode. Hope you're enjoying the show so far. And if you like the show, please be sure to subscribe, rate, review on wherever you get your podcast. We are pretty much everywhere wherever you get your podcast. Also, be sure to keep your eyes peeled for new winter shows. You can hear about them on Spreaker.com/TSWS on the text on the front page. You'll see it. Don't worry. Just type in Spreaker.com/TSWS. You know everything that the Spence Walsh Radio Network has to offer as soon as you arrive there, because it's going to be very clear. All right. that's pretty much it. So we'll see you tomorrow.